He was just cleaning the temple, until the dead god opened his eyes and whispered, "Finally." Dust hung thick in the air, and each step he took echoed across the empty space. He held a worn broom in his hands, brushing at the floor with careful, precise movements. Cleaning this place was his job, simple and quiet, and he liked it that way. No one came here anymore except him, and sometimes at night, the wind that slipped through the broken windows whispered against the stones like voices from far away. He had been at the temple for nearly a year now. Every morning he would walk the long path through the hills to reach it, and every evening he would walk back home to the small village at the edge of the forest. The people there didn't talk much about the temple, except to call it cursed or dangerous, but Eli didn't care. He liked the quiet. He liked the stillness of the old stones and the smell of dust and moss that clung to the walls. That morning, the sky was gray, and a thin drizzle fell from the clouds. Eli adjusted his hood and stepped through the temple doors, careful not to slip on the wet stones. The temple had not seen visitors for centuries, not since the last of the priests had vanished. Now, it was only him and the echoes. He began sweeping near the main altar, where a great stone statue of a god once stood. Most of it was broken now. Only the head remained, its features worn smooth by time. Eli ran his hand over the cold stone, feeling the faint grooves where a mouth had once smiled, and eyes had once stared down at those who came to pray. "Another day," he muttered softly to himself, more out of habit than need. As he swept, he noticed a small crack near the base of the altar. It was a hairline fracture at first, but as he leaned closer, he saw a faint glow shining from within. He blinked. The temple had never had lights here, never a glow. Eli bent down and peered into the crack. The light pulsed like a heartbeat. It was faint but steady. His heart began to pound in his chest. Something inside him whispered that he should step back, that he should leave it alone, but curiosity would not let him. He reached toward the crack, brushing his fingers against the warm stone. Suddenly, the temple shook. Dust fell from the ceiling, and Eli stumbled backward, nearly dropping his broom. The light inside the crack flared, and he heard it. A voice soft and dry like wind through dead leaves. Finally, Eli froze. His mind struggled to process what he had heard. A voice, from the stone, from the altar. He shook his head, thinking it must be his imagination. "Who's there?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The glow grew brighter. The air around him thickened, warm and heavy. The stone face on the altar seemed to move just slightly. The eyes, once empty, flickered with life. Eli could see faint shapes in the dark stone, shapes that might have been veins or cracks, moving like they were alive. "I have waited a long time," the voice said again, this time louder, filling the temple with its quiet power. "You have cleaned my temple, and now you will see." Eli stumbled backward. He fell onto the floor, coughing as dust swirled around him. His heart raced, and his mind screamed at him to run, but his legs refused to move. Something held him in place, a mixture of fear and awe that he could not name. I don't understand," he whispered. The eyes on the stone widened. A low rumble rolled through the temple like distant thunder. The head of the god tilted forward, and for the first time in centuries it spoke with clarity. "Eli Carter," it said, speaking his name as if it had known him all his life. "You have served when no one else would. You have cared for this place. You have been patient. Now the time has come. The veil will lift and you will see what I am." Eli's mind reeled. He did not know what the god meant or how it knew his name. He felt a sudden weight pressing down on his chest, a feeling of awe that made it hard to breathe. The air shimmered around him and the glow spread from the crack to the entire altar. Shadows danced across the walls as though the temple itself had begun to breathe. What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "To watch," the god said simply. "To remember, you will carry the knowledge I once held. You will carry it for your people and for those who will come after." Eli swallowed hard. He wanted to ask more questions, to demand answers, but the words would not come. He could only watch as the light grew brighter, engulfing him. A strange warmth filled his body, and he felt his mind expand, as though memories not his own were being poured into him. He saw visions of stars burning in cold space, of cities rising and falling, of beings long dead and forgotten. He felt power, ancient and terrible, and also sadness, deep and endless. Images of war came first, armies of creatures he could not name, fighting across worlds. He saw civilizations torn apart, planets scorched, and yet somewhere in the darkness life persisted. Fragile, stubborn, beautiful. Then he saw humans, small and defiant, surviving against odds that should have destroyed them. They built, they fought, they endured. He felt their courage, their hope, and their fear. Eli gasped. He had never left his village, never seen much beyond the hills, yet here he was, feeling the weight of history itself. The god's voice continued, now softer, almost gentle. "You will understand why they are special," it said. "Why your kind will always endure when others fall. Remember this, and you will know what must be done." The glow faded slowly, leaving the temple dimmer than before, but not empty. Eli's mind buzzed with knowledge and his body trembled. He had changed, though he could not yet say how. He sat on the cold stone floor, breathing heavily. The altar was silent now. The god's eyes were closed again, stone once more. And yet, Eli knew the voice had not left him. It was inside his head, a quiet presence, guiding and watching. He looked around the temple. Everything seemed the same, but he felt different. He was no longer just a man cleaning stones. He had been given a gift, a responsibility, and a warning. Eli rose to his feet, brushing the dust from his clothes. His hands still shook and his heart pounded in his chest, but he felt a strange calm underneath it all. He understood now that his life had been changed forever. Outside, the drizzle had stopped. A weak sun broke through the clouds, casting pale light across the hills. Eli stepped out of the temple, blinking against the brightness. He looked back once at the altar, and for a moment he thought he saw the faintest shimmer in the stone eyes, as if they were watching him still. He did not know what the god had planned, or how humans would fit into the great story he had just glimpsed. But he knew he could not stay in the village, sweeping the same streets and avoiding the old temple. His path had changed. He would carry the knowledge he had been given, and he would act. For the first time, Eli felt a spark of something he had never known. Fear, yes, but also purpose. He would not let the chance slip away. He would see what the god wanted him to see. He would learn, and perhaps one day he would teach. And somewhere deep inside him, he heard the voice again, faint but sure. Finally. Eli shivered, not from cold, but from the weight of what had just begun. He turned and walked down the hill toward the village. The world seemed larger now, full of hidden paths and unknown dangers, but he felt ready. Somehow, he knew that this was only the beginning of a story that would stretch across time and space, a story that he and his people would play a part in. He did not look back again, but the temple remained in his mind, carved into his memory like a place of both wonder and warning. And as he walked, he whispered to himself, half in disbelief, half in awe, "I was just cleaning the temple, and now everything is different." Eli did not yet know what awaited him, what trials or enemies he would face, or what he would learn about himself. But he knew one thing: the dead god had opened his eyes and his life had changed forever. As he disappeared into the misty morning, the temple remained silent, ancient and waiting. And somewhere deep within its stone heart, the god rested, patient as always, knowing that the story of humans was far from over. Eli walked through the quiet village, still trying to grasp the visions he had seen in the temple. Everything felt different now. The hills, the forests, even the small houses where he had lived all his life seemed smaller, almost fragile compared to the vast worlds he had glimpsed. He could still hear the god's voice in his mind, soft and patient, reminding him that there was more to see, more to learn. When he reached his small home, He did not bother with food or rest. Instead, he sat at the wooden table and tried to recall every detail of the visions. Stars, planets, battles, strange creatures, and humans surviving against impossible odds. The knowledge the god had given him was like a heavy stone in his chest, but at the same time it filled him with energy. He could feel ideas forming, plans forming, even though he did not yet understand their meaning. "Why me?" he whispered to himself. "Why now?" There was no answer, only a quiet certainty that he had been chosen for something important. He ran his hands through his hair and decided he could not stay in the village any longer. If the god had awakened him for a purpose, he had to follow it, wherever it led. The next morning, Eli packed a small bag. He took food, water, and a few tools, but left behind almost everything else. The villagers noticed him leaving, curious but too cautious to ask questions. Eli gave them only a small wave and walked toward the forest, following the path that led to the old roads beyond the hills. He did not yet know where he would go, but he trusted the feeling in his chest, a pull that seemed to guide him forward. As he traveled, the visions returned. He saw ships moving through space, faster than anything he had ever imagined, carrying humans and machines across stars. He saw strange weapons, bright and deadly, and creatures with shapes he could barely understand. But the humans always survived. They fought, they adapted, and they endured. Eli realized that the god had shown him the strength of his people, their ability to overcome any obstacle. By midday, Eli reached the ruins of an old watchtower. It had once been used to guard the village from invaders, but now it was little more than broken stone and ivy. He climbed to the top, hoping to see the surrounding lands, to find some clue about where he should go next. From the top, the forest stretched far, and beyond them he could see rivers and hills rolling toward the horizon. He felt small, but he also felt powerful. The visions had given him knowledge, and knowledge, he realized, was stronger than fear. While he was on the tower, he noticed movement in the distance. A small group of travelers was making its way along the old road. Eli could see that they were humans, but different from the people in his village. Their clothing was simple but sturdy, and they carried tools and weapons that looked new, even advanced. Curiosity pulled him down from the tower, and he approached quietly, staying hidden among the trees. As he got closer, he heard their voices. "We should reach the border before nightfall," one of them said. It was a woman, her voice firm but tired. "If we stay here, the storms could catch us." "Agreed," a man replied. "The path is long, but the faster we go, the safer we'll be." Eli watched them, noticing the determination in their steps. He realized that these humans were survivors too, like in the visions. They adapted, they worked together, and they moved forward no matter the danger. The god had been right. Humans were special, even when he had doubted it before. He decided to follow them at a distance, hoping they would lead him somewhere important. The group moved carefully through the forest, avoiding broken branches and fallen trees. Eli kept silent, moving as quietly as a shadow. By evening, the travelers reached a small clearing. They made a camp, starting a fire that cast warm light over the trees. Eli watched from behind a bush, learning. He saw the way they worked together, sharing food, tending to injuries, and keeping watch for dangers. Every movement seemed calculated, every word meaningful. Eli felt a mix of admiration and wonder. These people were ordinary, yet extraordinary. During the night, Eli finally spoke. He stepped from behind the bush, hands raised to show he meant no harm. I mean no trouble," he said, his voice trembling slightly. The travelers froze, hands moving toward their weapons. The woman who had spoken earlier stepped forward. "Who are you?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "How did you find us?" "My name is Eli," he said quickly. I'm not a threat, I'm just traveling. I saw you on the road." The man beside her lowered his weapon slightly. "You're far from the village, aren't you?" he asked. Eli nodded. Yes, I left. I have to. I don't know exactly why, but I feel like I need to go somewhere to do something. The woman studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Perhaps you are one of us, she said quietly. Perhaps you are meant to travel with us. We can always use another hand, another mind. The road ahead is dangerous. Relief washed over Eli. He joined their camp, sharing the fire and the food they offered. That night, as the wind moved through the trees, Eli felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. The God's words were in his mind, guiding him, giving him strength. He knew he was no longer just a man wandering hills. He was part of something larger, something beyond his understanding, and yet he felt ready. Over the next few days, Eli traveled with the group. They crossed forests, climbed hills, and followed rivers. He learned their names, Liam, Sarah, Owen, and Clara, and shared his story cautiously. He did not speak of the God at first, not until he could trust them, but he learned about their mission. They were searching for knowledge, for ancient places and tools left behind by civilizations long gone. They were explorers, survivors, humans who had refused to die despite the harshness of their world. Eli realized that the God's visions had been preparing him for this. He could see patterns in the terrain, notice dangers before they appeared, and understand the strange machines and symbols they found along the way. Every day he grew stronger, not in body but in mind. One evening, as they made camp beside a quiet stream, Eli finally spoke of the temple. He told them about the God, the visions, and the voice that had spoken to him. The group listened silently, their faces serious. "I don't know if I can believe this," Owen said finally, scratching his beard. "But I can see that you have changed. You are different. You carry something powerful." Sarah nodded. "If the God is real, then you have been chosen. We will follow you, Eli. If this is the path, then we walk it together." Eli felt a surge of gratitude. He had expected fear or disbelief, but instead he found trust. It was a rare gift, and he accepted it without hesitation. Together they made plans for the journey ahead. The God had given Eli knowledge, but the path forward would require more than knowledge. It would require courage, cooperation, and faith in the human spirit. The next morning they continued their journey. The forest grew denser, and the air felt heavier. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, creatures moving unseen, branches snapping under weight. Eli felt the God's presence guiding him still, a constant whisper in his mind, reminding him to pay attention, to prepare. By midday, they reached the edge of the forest and saw a valley stretching below. In the center of the valley stood a large stone structure, half buried and crumbling. It looked ancient, older than anything Eli had seen, and yet it radiated a strange energy. The group stopped at the edge, staring at the ruins with awe and caution. "This is it," Eli whispered, though he was not sure why he said it. The God's voice echoed in his mind, stronger now, urging him forward. Sarah stepped beside him. "What is it?" she asked. "I don't know," Eli admitted, "but I think it is important. The God, the one I met in the temple, it has something to do with this place. We need to go inside." The group nodded, and together they descended into the valley. As they approached the stone structure, Eli felt the air shift. It was warmer, heavier, filled with the hum of energy that he had first noticed in the temple. The walls were covered with symbols, similar to those he had seen before, and the stones seemed to pulse faintly under his touch. Inside, the structure was dark but spacious. Broken columns rose to the ceiling, and the floor was cracked and uneven. In the center, a large stone pedestal stood, covered in dust and glowing faintly. Eli approached it cautiously, his heart pounding. The God's voice filled his mind again. "You have come," it said. "You are ready. What is here will change the path of your people forever. Choose carefully, Eli Carter. The future of humans depends on your courage and your wisdom." Eli looked at the pedestal, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on him. He could sense power here, knowledge beyond measure, and perhaps danger as well, but he was not afraid. He had the trust of his companions, the guidance of the god, and the strength of the human spirit within him. He reached out toward the pedestal, feeling the energy pulse through his fingers. The air shimmered around him, and he felt a sudden clarity. He knew without question that his journey had only just begun. What he would find here could save his people or destroy them. But Eli did not hesitate. With a deep breath, he placed both hands on the stone and whispered, "I am ready." The pedestal glowed brighter, and the room filled with light. The walls trembled, and the air was filled with a low hum, like the heartbeat of the world itself. The god's presence was stronger than ever, and Eli felt the weight of destiny settle upon him. He was no longer just a man cleaning a temple. He was the chosen witness, the bearer of knowledge, and the guide for those who would follow. The human spirit, fragile but unyielding, was about to be tested in ways no one had imagined. And Eli Carter was ready to lead the way. The light from the pedestal filled the ancient stone chamber, bathing Eli and his companions in a soft glow. He could feel the energy beneath his fingers, like a river of power flowing through the very air. The god's voice resonated in his mind, calm and patient, but stronger now. "You are ready to see," it said, "but what you will find will test your courage. Only those who believe in the strength of humanity can survive what is coming." Eli drew a deep breath and lifted his hands from the pedestal. The glow remained, soft but steady, illuminating the entire chamber. His companions, Sarah, Liam, Owen, and Clara, watched him with awe, their eyes wide. They had followed him here, trusting his instincts and the strange guidance he had received, but none of them understood fully what they were about to face. "What is this place?" Sarah asked softly, stepping closer. "It feels alive." Eli shook his head. "I don't know yet. But I can feel the God's presence. It wants us to see something, and I think it is important for all of humanity." The pedestal pulsed again, sending a shiver through the floor beneath their feet. Suddenly, the walls of the chamber began to shift. Stone moved and rearranged itself as if the building were breathing. Symbols on the walls glowed, casting strange shadows that danced across the broken columns. The companions stepped back instinctively, but Eli held his ground. "It's okay," he said, his voice firmer than he felt. "The God is guiding us. We have to trust it." The chamber's center opened like a doorway. From the pedestal rose a column of light, stretching toward the ceiling and beyond. Within the light, Eli could see visions of planets, stars, and worlds filled with life. It was as if the pedestal was showing them the universe, not just the past, but also possible futures. Liam swallowed hard. "I've never seen anything like this. It's incredible." Eli nodded, feeling a mixture of wonder and responsibility. He stepped closer to the column of light, sensing that he was being called. As he did, a voice whispered in his mind, sharper now. "Do you see it? The potential of your kind, the strength you carry." "Yes," Eli answered, his voice barely audible. "I see it, I feel it." "Good," the god said. "But seeing is not enough. You must act. Your people will face enemies that will not understand mercy. They will challenge everything you know. You must be ready." Eli's heart pounded, but he did not move away. He reached out and touched the light. Instantly, the visions became clearer. He saw human civilization scattered across countless worlds, struggling against forces that seemed impossible. He saw machines of war, colossal and unstoppable, striking without warning. He saw alien creatures, cunning and deadly, testing every skill and instinct humanity had. And yet in every vision he saw humans surviving. They adapted. They fought back. They endured. The god's voice spoke again, firm and unwavering. "This is the path your kind must take. You are the first to see it. You must learn and you must teach. Humans will not survive by strength alone. They will survive by intelligence, by courage, and by unity." Eli stepped back, blinking as the light dimmed. The chamber returned to its normal state, the walls solid and the shadows still. His companions looked at him, their expressions a mix of fear and awe. What did you see? Clara asked, her voice trembling. Eli swallowed. I saw the future, he said slowly. I saw what humans can do and what they must face. We are not alone in the universe, and we will be tested in ways we cannot imagine. The companions were silent, trying to absorb his words. Finally, Sarah spoke. Then we need to prepare. Whatever is out there, we face it together. Eli nodded. Yes, together. Over the next days, the group explored the stone structure. They discovered rooms filled with strange artifacts, machines that hummed with energy, weapons of unknown design, and books carved into metal plates. Eli could sense the god's guidance in everything he touched. He learned how to activate some of the machines, and though the knowledge came in flashes and moments of clarity, it was enough to give them tools and weapons that could rival anything they had imagined. One afternoon, while examining a circular device covered in symbols, Eli felt a sudden jolt of energy. The device came to life, projecting a three-dimensional map into the air. Stars, planets, and constellations floated before them. Eli recognized some of the stars from his visions. He realized that the device was a map, showing not just locations but movements, fleets of ships, some hostile, some neutral, moving across the galaxy. This is incredible, Liam said, stepping closer. We can see where potential threats are. We can plan before anything reaches us. Eli nodded. The God has given us knowledge, but it's up to us to use it wisely. We cannot rely on luck. Humans survive because we learn, adapt, and act. As they studied the map, the god's voice returned in Eli's mind. You are ready for the first trial. Out there are beings who will see your kind as weak, as insignificant. They will underestimate you. That is their mistake. Teach them what humans can do. Eli felt a mixture of excitement and fear. He had seen the potential of humans, but he had not yet faced the reality of an enemy who would test it. He looked at his companions, seeing the determination in their faces. They were ready to follow him, ready to face whatever challenge awaited. The next morning, they left the ancient structure. Eli felt a pull toward the stars, as if the god were guiding them to the next step. They traveled through forests, across rivers, and over hills. Along the way, Eli shared what he had learned, teaching his companions the strategies he had glimpsed in the visions. They trained together, learning how to use the artifacts and tools they had found. Each day, their skills improved and their confidence grew. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Eli saw a flash in the sky. A ship, unlike any he had seen before, descended toward the valley where they were camped. Its hull was dark, smooth, and enormous. Lights blinked along its surface, and a low hum of energy filled the air. Eli's heart raced. This was the first real test, the first challenge the god had warned them about. The ship landed with a soft thud, sending a shockwave through the ground. Figures emerged from the craft, tall, alien, with armor that shimmered in the fading light. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, and they carried weapons that glowed with energy. Eli stepped forward, placing himself between the aliens and his companions. I don't know who you are, he called out, his voice steady, but you are not welcome here. The aliens did not respond. Instead, one of them raised its hand, and a pulse of energy shot toward the ground, creating a barrier of light around the group. Eli felt the god's presence strengthen within him, filling him with clarity and courage. Stand firm, the god whispered in his mind. Show them what humans are capable of. Eli nodded. He could feel the knowledge and power the god had given him. He understood how to act, how to fight, and how to protect his companions. With a deep breath, he raised his hands, channeling the energy he felt from the pedestal and the god. A shield of light formed around them, shimmering and strong. The aliens moved forward, testing the barrier. Eli could sense their surprise at the resistance. They had expected humans to be weak, but the god had prepared him and his companions for this moment. Sarah, Liam, Owen, and Clara moved alongside him, weapons ready. Together, they faced the aliens, a small group of humans against an unknown and powerful force. But Eli felt no fear. He felt the strength of his people, the courage of generations, and the guidance of the God who had awakened him. The first pulse of energy hit the shield and bounced back, striking the alien leader. A flash of light filled the air, and the aliens faltered. Eli's companions reacted immediately, using their weapons to push back. Each movement was precise, each action guided by instinct and strategy. The aliens regrouped, but Eli's confidence did not waver. He knew they could survive, they could win, because humans never gave up. Hours passed in a blur of light and energy. The valley echoed with the sounds of struggle, but Eli never wavered. He felt the God's presence in every move, in every choice. Slowly, the aliens began to retreat, recognizing that their opponents were not ordinary humans. They were something stronger, something smarter. They had underestimated them. When the last alien ship lifted off, disappearing into the sky, Eli and his companions collapsed to the ground, exhausted but victorious. The God's voice whispered in his mind, calm and approving. "Well done," it said. "You have passed the first test. You have shown the strength of your kind, but this is only the beginning. Greater challenges lie ahead. Remember what you have learned today." Eli looked at his companions, their faces glowing with relief and triumph. He knew they had changed. They had seen the power humans could wield, and they had survived a trial that should have destroyed them. "We did it," Clara said softly, her voice shaking. "Yes," Eli replied, a small smile on his face. "But this is only the start. We have much to learn, and the universe is vast. We will face more challenges, and we will overcome them together." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the valley in twilight. Eli felt the God's presence fade slightly, but he knew it was still watching, still guiding. He stood looking up at the stars. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and full of unknown enemies, but he felt ready. Humanity was ready, and in that moment Eli understood what the God had meant. Humans were fragile, but they were also unbreakable. They could endure, adapt, and rise against any challenge. He turned to his companions, determination burning in his eyes. "Come on," he said. "We have a universe to explore, and we have to make sure our kind survives. Let's keep moving. This is only the beginning." Together they walked into the night, the stars above shining brighter than ever. The first battle was over, but the journey had just begun. Eli knew one thing with certainty: humans would survive, no matter what the universe threw at them. And he would lead them, guided by the God, through the darkness toward a future that was theirs to claim. The valley lay quiet after the battle, but Eli could feel tension in the air. His companions were exhausted, but their eyes shone with determination. They had faced aliens who were stronger and more advanced than anything they had ever imagined, yet they had survived. For Eli, it was proof of what the God had shown him. Humans endured when no one expected them to. "Eli," Sarah said, breaking the silence as they walked along a narrow path leading out of the valley, "do you think they will come back?" "I don't know," Eli admitted, "but it doesn't matter. We have survived this encounter. That is what counts. And if they return, we will be ready." Clara glanced at the sky, where the last alien ship had disappeared. "Ready or not, they will be back. I've seen their kind. They don't give up easily." Eli nodded. He had learned to trust the God's guidance, but he also knew the universe was unpredictable. He felt the weight of responsibility heavier now than ever before. He was not just leading himself or his companions. He carried the potential of all humans in his hands, and the choices he made would affect more than just their lives. They continued walking, following a path that seemed familiar to Eli. The God's voice had guided him once before, and he trusted it would guide him again. The terrain grew rougher, with jagged rocks and cliffs that forced them to climb carefully. Each step tested their endurance, but it also strengthened them, forging a sense of unity that Eli had never experienced before. By evening, they reached a plateau overlooking a vast desert. The wind was hot and dry, carrying with it dust and sand that stung their skin. In the distance, Eli could see structures rising from the sand, half buried and ancient. The god's voice spoke again in his mind. "This is the place where you will gain what you need for the next stage," it said. "Within the ruins lie secrets that will strengthen humanity, but the path is dangerous. Only those who endure will succeed." Eli turned to his companions. "We rest here tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we explore the ruins. We do it together. Everyone watches everyone else. If any of us falters, we cannot continue." They set up a small camp at the edge of the plateau. The fire was small, barely enough to keep them warm as the desert wind swept across the rocks. Eli kept watch, feeling the god's presence like a weight on his shoulders, reminding him of the importance of their mission. That night, Eli dreamed of the god again. The visions were more vivid than ever. He saw humans traveling across the stars, exploring worlds filled with strange landscapes and dangerous creatures. He saw humans fighting, not just to survive, but to protect one another, to preserve the spark of life in the universe. He saw the god watching, waiting, guiding those who were worthy. When he awoke, the first light of dawn was breaking across the desert. Eli shook off the remnants of sleep and gathered his companions. They approached the ruins with caution, aware that danger could be lurking anywhere. The structures were enormous, carved from black stone that absorbed the sunlight, making the shadows deep and foreboding. The entrance to the main ruin was wide and tall, with carvings of unknown beings etched into the stone. Eli felt the god's presence stronger here, almost tangible. "This is it," he whispered. "Be ready, watch each other, we do this together." They stepped inside. The interior was cool, dark, and silent. The air was heavy with dust and the smell of stone. Eli held a torch, casting light across the walls. Strange symbols glowed faintly as he passed, illuminating passages that led deeper into the ruin. As they moved forward, they encountered obstacles, fallen stones, deep pits, and narrow corridors that tested their agility and coordination. Each challenge brought them closer together, teaching them to trust one another implicitly. The god's voice was always in Eli's mind, guiding their steps, warning of dangers before they appeared, and offering insight into the strange mechanisms they found along the way. Hours passed, and finally they reached a large chamber. In the center stood a massive structure, unlike anything Eli had seen. It was a machine, ancient and powerful, with tubes and conduits running through it, pulsing faintly with energy. Symbols covered the surface, and Eli could feel the god's presence concentrated here. "This is what we came for," Eli said. "The god has shown me this. It is important, but we must be careful. We do not know what will happen when we activate it." Liam stepped closer, examining the machine. "It looks like a weapon," he said, "or maybe a tool. But either way, it is old, very old, and dangerous." Eli nodded. "Yes, but the god wants us to use it. It has chosen us to understand it, to make it work. And if we succeed, humans will be stronger, smarter, and ready for the challenges ahead." They began to study the machine, trying to understand its purpose. Eli guided them, recalling the visions the god had shown him. Slowly, they discovered how to activate parts of it. Energy began to flow through the conduits, filling the room with a soft hum. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, and the air seemed charged with power. Suddenly, the chamber shook. The floor trembled and dust fell from the ceiling. A deep rumble echoed through the ruins. Eli realized that activating the machine had triggered a defense system. "Stand back," he shouted. "The god warned us, it is testing us." The walls shifted, and from the shadows, creatures emerged. They were strange, humanoid in shape, but covered in thick armor like scales. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and their movements were quick and precise. Eli felt the god's presence guiding him, giving him clarity and strength. "Remember what I taught you," he whispered to his companions. "Stay together, protect each other." Humans survive by working together. The battle began. Eli and his companions fought with determination, using the energy from the machine to enhance their abilities. Shields of light formed around them, pulses of energy struck the creatures, and their movements were coordinated with precision. The creatures were fast and strong, but the humans were smarter. They adapted to every attack, learning and reacting in ways the creatures did not expect. Hours passed. The chamber was filled with light, sound, and energy. Eli could feel the god's presence in every strike, every movement. Slowly, the creatures began to falter. They had underestimated humans, just as the god had said. The companions pressed forward, combining their strength, courage, and intelligence. Finally, the last creature fell, dissolving into shadows that vanished into the air. The chamber was silent once more, the energy of the machine stabilizing. Eli and his companions were exhausted but victorious. The god's voice filled Eli's mind, calm and approving. "You have passed another trial. You have shown the courage, intelligence, and unity that defines humanity. But remember, this is only the beginning. Greater dangers are ahead. The universe will test your kind, and you must always be ready." Eli looked at his companions, their faces glowing with relief and triumph. They had survived a challenge that would have destroyed lesser beings. They had proven that humans were not weak, not fragile, but resilient, clever, and brave. "We did it," Clara said, her voice trembling with exhaustion. "Yes," Eli replied, a small smile on his face. "But the journey is far from over. We have learned much, but there is more ahead. We will face it together and we will survive. Humanity always survives." As they left the ruins and returned to the desert, Eli felt the god's presence recede slightly, but he knew it was still watching. The journey ahead would be dangerous, filled with unknown threats, but he was ready. His companions were ready. Humanity was ready. The stars above the desert glowed faintly in the evening sky, and Eli felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever. He had been chosen, guided, and empowered by a force older than time itself. But the strength of humans came not from gods or machines. It came from their courage, their intelligence, and their determination to endure. Eli turned to his companions. "We keep moving," he said. "The universe is vast and our story is just beginning. We have much to do and we will not fail." Together they walked into the night, leaving the ruins behind. The challenges they had faced had strengthened them, united them, and proven that humans could endure anything. But Eli knew that the greatest tests were still ahead. The universe was wide, full of enemies, wonders, and dangers. And humans would face it all, guided by courage, intelligence, and the spark that made them unbreakable. And Eli Carter, chosen by a god who had long slept, would lead them through it all. Eli and his companions walked beneath the stars, leaving the ruins behind. The desert wind whispered around them, but it no longer felt threatening. They had faced danger, survived, and grown stronger. Eli could feel the god's presence, faint but constant, guiding their steps and reminding him that the universe still held tests far greater than any they had seen. "The god said there's more ahead," Liam said, breaking the silence. "Do you think we are ready?" Eli looked up at the sky, letting the stars settle in his mind. "We're humans," he said firmly. "We survive when others think we can't. We learn, we adapt, and we fight. That's what makes us strong. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Sarah nodded, a determined expression on her face. "Then let's keep moving. The sooner we find it, the sooner we can prepare." For days, they traveled across deserts, forests, and rivers, following the guidance Eli felt in his mind. The god had shown him visions of a distant system, a place where humanity's greatest challenge would soon arrive. It was said to be a nexus of power, a point where civilizations across the galaxy clashed and tested their strength. Eli could sense the energy from afar, a pulsing hum in the air that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. When they finally reached the system, They saw it was unlike anything humans had ever encountered. Massive ships moved through space with terrifying speed. Some were familiar in shape, like the ones Eli had seen in his visions, but others were alien, enormous, and deadly. The system itself was alive with energy, a place of constant conflict where survival depended on intelligence, strategy, and courage. "This is it," Eli said, staring at the scene. "This is what the god wanted us to see, and this is where humans will prove themselves." Owen squinted at the distant ships. "It looks impossible. How can we fight against something like that?" Eli shook his head. "Not by fighting blindly, by thinking, by learning, and by working together. Humans survive because we are clever, because we adapt, because we do not give up." The companions nodded. They had seen humans endure impossible odds before, but this would be the ultimate test. Eli felt the god's presence surge within him, stronger than ever. He knew this moment would define their place in the universe. They approached the outer edge of the system, keeping low and hidden. Eli guided them, showing them how to move through the gaps in the fleet, avoid detection, and strike at key points. He felt the god's knowledge flowing through him, teaching him the weaknesses of the enemy and the strengths of humans. When they finally reached a position close enough to act, Eli stopped the group. "This is it," he said. "We strike smart, not hard. We hit where it hurts, we avoid what we cannot handle, and we protect each other. Remember, humans survive by thinking and acting together." The companions nodded, gripping their weapons and preparing to move. Eli led the first strike, targeting a critical control hub on one of the alien ships. With the guidance of the god, they bypassed shields, navigated defenses, and moved with precision. Each action was deliberate, every choice calculated. Humans had learned to survive in impossible circumstances, and that knowledge now guided them in space. The aliens responded quickly, sending patrol ships to intercept. But Eli and his companions were faster, smarter, and coordinated. Using tactics he had learned from the god, they outmaneuvered the attackers, striking weak points and disabling key systems. Energy flares and explosions lit the dark sky, but the humans pressed forward, never faltering. Hours passed in a blur of action. Ships collided, weapons fired, and strategies shifted with every moment. Eli could feel the god's presence guiding him, giving him insight into the enemy's movements. He could sense the flow of the battle, predicting attacks before they came and directing his companions with clarity and authority. Finally, they reached the central ship, the command vessel of the alien fleet. It was massive, far larger than any ship they had encountered, bristling with weapons and energy fields. Eli knew this would be the hardest part. If they failed here, the humans would be defeated, and the god's guidance would have been in vain. "We do this together," Eli said firmly, looking at his companions. "Stay close, watch each other, and remember what we are capable of. Humans endure." They entered the ship's outer defenses, moving like shadows through the corridors. The aliens inside were caught off guard, expecting no one to reach them. Eli and his companions used strategy and speed to disable their weapons and systems. Every move was precise, every step calculated. Humans were clever, resourceful, and relentless. Finally, they reached the ship's command center. Eli placed his hands on the central console, feeling the energy hum beneath his fingers. The god's voice filled his mind, calm and commanding. "This is the moment," it said. "Show them the strength of your kind." Eli nodded and activated the ship's systems using the knowledge the god had given him. Energy flowed through the vessel, redirecting power and disabling critical alien functions. The command center trembled, alarms blaring, as the aliens realized they had been outmaneuvered. One by one, the alien ships in the system began to falter. Their formations collapsed, their defenses crumbled, and their attacks slowed. Humans had struck with intelligence, courage, and unity, qualities that no alien technology could fully counter. Eli felt a surge of pride. They had done what seemed impossible. They had won. The battle ended with the remaining alien ships retreating into deep space. The system was quiet once more, the stars shining bright above the humans who had survived against overwhelming odds. Eli and his companion stood together, exhausted but victorious, knowing that their actions had changed the course of history. The god's voice filled Eli's mind one last time. "You have done well. You have proven the potential of your kind. Humans are fragile, yet unbreakable. You survive, adapt, and endure. Your kind will carry this strength into the future, and the universe will remember it." Eli looked at his companions, seeing the same pride and determination reflected in their eyes. They had faced impossible odds and won. They had proven that humans were more than they appeared, resilient, clever, and brave beyond measure. "We did it," Clara said, her voice soft but filled with emotion. "We really did it." "Yes," Eli said, a small smile spreading across his face. "But this is only the beginning. Humanity has so much to do, so many worlds to explore and challenges to face. But we will survive. We always survive." The companions gathered, standing together as the stars stretched endlessly above them. They were tired, battered, and scarred by the battle, but they were alive. And more importantly, they were humans. Eli took a deep breath, feeling the god's presence fade slowly. The temple, the visions, the guidance, they had all led to this moment. Humans had been tested and they had endured. He felt a deep sense of purpose and hope. "We go back," he said. "Back to humanity, back to the worlds that need us. We will teach, guide, and protect. And we will make sure our kind endures, no matter what the universe throws at us." The companions nodded, ready to continue their journey. They had faced death, danger, and uncertainty, and had survived. They had proven that humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were strong, intelligent, and capable of overcoming the impossible. As they departed the system, Eli looked back at the stars where the alien fleet had once been. He felt the god's voice whispering one last time. "Remember, Eli Carter, remember what you have learned. Humanity endures, and it is up to you to lead them." Eli smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also the certainty of purpose. Humans would survive because they must, and with courage, intelligence, and unity, there was nothing in the universe that could stop them. The group continued their journey, moving toward new worlds, new challenges, and new opportunities. They were humans, and that was enough. They carried the spark of life, the will to endure, and the ability to overcome anything. Eli knew the road ahead would not be easy. The universe was vast, full of dangers and mysteries. But humans had proven they could endure, and that was all that mattered. And somewhere in the depths of space, the god watched and waited, knowing that humanity's story had only just begun. Eli Carter led his companions forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. The universe would test them, but humans would endure, adapt, and thrive. They were strong, clever, and unyielding. They were humanity. And nothing, not gods, aliens, or the darkness of space, could ever take that away.